Welcome to Accounting High.
Getting people finding their sweet spot. And that's my uniqueness. And that is what brings me joy.
Cracking the code.
And
I think that a lot of stuff you do is cracking the code of life, translate to becoming a better person, better business owner.
the concept in the cracking the code, I talk about your learning style, figuring out who are you, how do you learn, then applying that to the techniques that are out there, what resonates with you, and then that's how you propel forward. For example, you're rapping. So you know a song, the CPA Doctor or whatever it is that
See,
your
if you're
other
CPA
client.
Doctor, we could do Dr. Dre. That would actually, that might work too.
May I have your attention, please?
Welcome to Accounting High. It's freshman year at a brand new school. Here, we have no rules in place as we're on a mission to set our own traditions. So hang tight and learn with us as we grow. At Accounting High, you can expect to gain knowledge in a completely different way than what you may be used to, with some fun and oftentimes colorful conversations. Whether you loved high school or you hated it, here's your chance to be a part of an unforgettable experience redone. While you're here, don't forget to follow us on Spotify or subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may be listening to us right now so you don't miss out on any new episodes. And feel free to leave us a 5-star review letting us know how the school year is treating you. In addition, share this episode on social media, tagging us at Accounting High. So sit back, relax, and open your mind because class is in session.
I repeat, may I have your attention, please?
This is another public service announcement brought to you in part
by Accounting High,
the views and events expressed here are
of the next generation of accounting and tech professionals leading this space.
the events and suggestions are not to be taken lightly. Children should not partake in the listening
Of this podcast.
anything else.
Yeah.
So without further ado, introducing the star of our show.
Scott Scarano and Dr. Sabine Charles.
We're gonna have a problem here.
Is it Sabine? Sabine, right? And,
Yes.
you know, I already knew this. Sabine, Dr. Sabine Charles is with me today. So, doctor, the doctor's in. Doctors in the house, classes in session. You might be our first doctor.
Oh,
You might
really?
be, yeah.
Uh-oh.
So since we met last time, I think the name has changed on the podcast. The theme is the same. We were sons of CPAs,
Okay.
and now we're Accounting High.
Yeah.
So, tell me, let's just tell me how you got started in this industry. How you got started in this?
How did I get started? Well, first of all, thank you for having me. The way I got started is I graduated with a French and Spanish literature degree. And my parents were so disappointed. When I told my mom specifically that I was thinking of doing that as my major, she said, now you're going to be able to read the unemployment form in more than one language. And I was so hurt when she said that to me. I was like, I'm going to prove her wrong. So I came up with this process on getting interviews from my friends who are all accountants.
Okay.
And hence how I got into the business.
Well, wait, how did that dovetail into interviews for accountants?
So I ended up landing a job at Citibank on their international team, working as an auditor and in Brazil and Panama. So I now speak French and Portuguese. And so now fast forwarding to working in corporate America, kind of figuring out what is next.
But you showed your
Working
mom
in
right
invest-
there that you can get a job using that skill set and
Exactly.
parlaying it to another skill set and, finance, right?
Exactly. That's what I did. And I took so I translate. So I always say I'm a translator. So I translate things because of the base of being a language major. So I translate complicated things into understandable language for people. And I teach people how to do that. Hence why I'm in the business of training people and helping people how
You're
to
an
learn.
educator, which is
I guess
very
so.
appropriate here at Accounting High.
High, yeah, exactly.
So, an educator, you're translating finance now too, or anything related to accounting.
Into a language that the person who's in front of me, who can understand.
And if that person speaks French or Portuguese, you can do it as well.
In those languages as
Pretty
well,
dope.
and Spanish.
And I think our parents want the best for us, right? And your mom just didn't understand that setting that foundation and learning something that you want to learn and doing something that you want to do is always going to be better. And it's going to pay off later in life. But
I know, but it's hard because they see only the doctors, the lawyers, the accountants, that type of thing in the path, and they want the best. And the best is having those type of professions. And when you ducktail and do something completely off the beaten path, brings fear into their hearts. And so that's why they come up with these comments.
it takes a lot of courage for you to do that, because obviously you want your parents' approval, and not getting that'll throw you off too. That'll throw off your whole momentum and doing what you want to do. But you did end up getting your doctorate, though. You're a doctor. What is a doctor in?
So in business administration, my focus is on emotional intelligence.
Ooh, I love that.
And leadership traits for CPAs.
Oh wow, this is kind of perfect. We do book reports on this show, and we're going to do a book report on Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart and emotions, emotional intelligence. I would love to talk about stuff like that too. That's dope.
Oh, I love that. Because, as an auditor, we have to use that a lot. And to be successful, you're going to have to really understand people.
For sure.
And it's not always just the technical aspects of business that will get us to the next level. Is being able to connect with individuals.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people really understand how important the human factor is in all of this and everything that we do. They don't understand until they deal with it, and until they're confused by somebody's reaction or emotions to what they said, because they don't have any bedside manner when they're dealing with the finance stuff. So, so tell me a little bit. Let's keep going on the journey here, because right now you're currently Charles Financial Services, right? Or Strategies? Is that Strategies? You got the TAPA Institute
in there,
and you're also internal auditor at Touro University.
Right. So let me kind of break this down.
For sure.
Charles Financial Strategies LLC, what we do is we do quality assurance reviews for Fortune 500 companies. So people come in, internal audit or even accounting firms. They ask my team to come in and evaluate their structure. Do they have, for CPA firms, is the quality control aspect of it that they would like us to take a look at for peer reviews, that type of stuff. For internal auditors, it's the QAR, which is something that's required it's not required, but is recommended, the IIA, for every certain amount of years for them to have an external reviewer of their internal audit function to ensure they adhere to the IIA. And then that's an opportunity for individuals and my team to provide recommendations to improve their control environment and services that they provide to their client, their internal clients. So I do that, and then that dovetails into training. And their TAPA Institute is where we do all the training, audit leadership, helping people pass certifications in the audit world, auditing, information technology, but more in the realms of auditing.
Okay. And what's your passion then? What's driving you to do this? Because our first conversation, we talked a lot about the creative and the fun stuff that you were doing too. And I do want to hear a lot about that. And that was main theme of our first conversation. I think, the people that really love what they do always find a way to do what they love, right? I know that sounded very simple. Love what you do what you love, but it's not that simple, because not a lot of people get that. They always think they got to have this whole work-life separation, and I don't think that's always the case.
I don't know. I struggle with that statement, work-life separation, because we can't separate our lives from
I don't
work.
like this statement at all. I don't like when people talk about work-life balance, because I feel like it can all blend together. We had a very good episode with Dave Barrett from Expensify, and he said the work life should be blended together and make a salad dressing, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's at the end of the day, we are all of that. We have this spiritual side, we have this business and professional side of ourselves. And we can't just divide it and say 33.333% is for this. So it is a blended situation. And you have to, I recommend that people to try to find their passion. So what I do is, I think you know this, but I'm also a hypnotist. I'm a certified hypnotist.
Mm-hmm.
And I use that to help my clients to really tap in to how they process information and find their, what makes them tick.
Can you hypnotize me on this episode?
Oh, it's going to take...
It'll take too long?
No, it won't, actually. But it's going to derail our conversation. But
we might pick up on that. You might be able to hypnotize the audience, too. But we'll get there. That might be a bonus at the end.
Yeah, we should actually do that.
That's not a bad idea.
Do a hypnosis session. Yeah, next time.
So
I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so somebody else who also said that balance is overrated or balance is bullshit is Ron Baker. Two of my favorite guests. I just shout out already. Dave Barrett and Ron Baker.
And I'm your third favorite
You're
guest.
gonna be. We didn't finish yet, so I don't know.
I'm aiming high.
Good. You're already starting off good because your earrings and your nails match perfectly, and against your shirt too.
Wait.
You're off to a good start.
No. So you know what I do every month? There's colors of the month, right? So I pick. I know.
This is it.
During COVID, I had free time, and so I color coordinate my closet to the colors of the month. So those colors, so blue is the color of this month. January is red. So then my whole wardrobe is going to be red. You see I just had some time on my hands and I was like, how can I keep my creativity going? Because in corporate America, I used to wear black, all black, dark blue all the time. And I said, that's not my personality. So I share my personality through colors.
Love that.
And the colors tend to represent something. So when I wore pink in October, that was breast cancer. That was cancer month. So then that is a conversation because I had family members who had cancer. So that was a way of connecting. And then yellow was suicide awareness. And so then again, just to kind of have those conversations. I don't have anything with blue yet, but those are the 2 months that these recent months that passed.
December makes sense to be blue. I mean, you can't go cliche and go red or green. You got to do blue. Blue's like the tone of December anyway. Starts to get a lot colder.
Right. The moon, like the white moon, that kind of.
I mean, it's so much easier to pick out your clothes if you're doing it by color. I do this all the time. Like yesterday, I started with my boxers were orange, and everything I wore was orange. After that,
it's too
all right, maybe too much. But I usually start at the most basic, stuff that nobody's going to see. But then I know it, and then everything else I wear. So today is just a black day. I'm just like all black. So.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you're not going to show us, but that's good.
No. You don't need to see. Yeah, you're good.
That's good.
Black and gray, though. Black and gray, to be clear. So yeah, talk a little bit about, finding your way into that, because you didn't start out as trainer, educator.
No.
But of what you do these days, like what energizes you?
Getting people finding their sweet spot. And that's my uniqueness. And so that's the part that I enjoy, is when people we crack the code. And that's the name of my book, actually, Cracking the Code. And that is what brings me joy.
Cracking the code.
And cracking the code.
When did you write this book?
Like 2 years ago. Yeah.
So was that your first book? Or?
That was my first book.
Okay. And are you working on another book? Have you had any other?
I am working on another book because I'm having a summit, like a workshop in Barbados.
Really?
Yes. In May.
Wow. Tell me about this.
So it's called The Leader in You. And this is where we're going to have 2 days of intense kind of figuring out what is your passion. And it doesn't necessarily matter if you're an accountant and a lawyer, just really figuring out where do you want to go. And a lot of times people talk about this through finance, like talking about your financial journey or your educational journey. And to your point earlier, we are a combined entity. We have all these pieces. So this is a holistic view of becoming unstuck, finding your leadership, the leader in you, for you to move into your greatness. So that's how, again, this is an involvement. I didn't start out like this. My passion or my gift was really translating complicated things to make it simple for senior leadership. An auditor. That's what I was. And then I gradually moved up the corporate ladder. And then I said, you know what? My husband picked up on this. He goes, you're always explaining things in a way that's easy for people to understand. And I was like, oh. He was like, why don't you try tutoring? And I tried it. And someone just came up to me and said, can you help me pass the CPA exam? I was like, I've never done this before. She passed. She told all of her friends. And then all of a sudden, I got people from Israel calling me up saying they want me to help them. Their son passed the CPA exam, but I didn't have a website or anything. So I just put something together kind of quickly. And 7 years later, I have 3 books out there. One of them is Cracking the Code, the techniques of passing certification exams. And then I have a graphic textbook. That was the one that you and I were talking about earlier.
Comic book.
Yeah, the comic book.
That's dope. So were you a CPA at the time?
No.
So you were teaching people, you're not a CPA, but you're teaching
No.
people how to pass the exam without passing it yourself.
That's right. Well, I never really.
No, I know.
it.
Like that's pretty awesome too. Like, how do you go about that? Like somebody said, and then you never looked at it and you were just like, all right. And you just looked at the study guide. How did you approach that?
I do that with massage. I do that with massage therapy because I help people pass the massage therapy exam. It's science. So, I mean,
it's science. Exams are science.
So I pick up on things quickly. So that's my gift. I translate, because of the language structure, right? It's a language. Accounting's a language. All of this is just really figuring out the code. So you have to figure out how they're asking the questions. So I teach people techniques of taking exams. Then I start talking about and helping them learn the material and the underlying concept underneath the questions that are being asked. That is really my secret sauce.
Cracking the code and getting unstuck. I want to talk more about getting unstuck. Sure. So what's just becoming unstuck. Tell me a little bit about that.
So becoming unstuck, it's about finances, your self-care, and education. Okay. Because those are the 3 things I think people tend to struggle with the most. Finances, your professional development through education, like gaining certifications, and self-care. And we're seeing a lot of mental awareness nowadays with self-care throughout because of maybe COVID, maybe other type of things, stressors, whatever's what's happening in the world. Yeah. And the news, just watching too much of X. And we're becoming unbalanced. And we're getting stuck in our ways and stuck in not necessarily talking to people who may have a different point of view. We just start yelling. And so I think that's where we need to become unstuck. Focusing on our self-health and well-being, figuring out where we want to go in our professional life, because that's going to open up that'll help us, again, reach self-fulfillment. And then that finance. If you're not financially stable, you become very stressed and you start making decisions that may not necessarily be the healthiest decision for you. And those are the 3 things that I believe that will help. If you tackle those 3 things, you become unstuck.
Yeah, it's the foundation. Rebuilding your foundation too, or going back to those, and it's an ever evolving process too. Like you can go to it once, but you got to always revisit that because there's always a way that that it's cyclical too.
I meditate twice a day.
I've been meditating once a day, almost every day.
Yeah.
It's hard when I travel sometimes, but meditating twice a day. So what's your practice? Like you have a standard time that you do it every day?
Yeah, I do TM,
I don't know what TM is.
Oh, it's TM meditation. It's just,
It's a type.
it's a whole,
It's a type of meditation.
yeah, a type of meditation. And I do that twice a day. And they have they do a group meditation twice a day online. And I just joined the group, and they usually have 1,000 people around the world just meditating together.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's just 20 minutes twice a day. And I do that just to kind of ground myself. So meditation may not necessarily work for everyone, right? Maybe you need to go to the gym. Doing something that grounds you is the most important thing, I believe. Because without that, that's the foundation for you to be able to move throughout your day.
Yeah. Yeah. Without that, to me, my mind gets cloudy, gets cluttered. I keep context shifting from the next thing to the next thing, and I don't have any time because my mind doesn't shut off when I'm not talking to somebody. It's still going on. I still have that inner dialogue almost always. And it's hard to turn that off or to know what to pay attention to.
Correct. Or just be able to just let it go and let it just run through its course.
Be a passive observer of that too. There's a book I read
That's right.
recently. I was still reading it, Untethered Soul. And that's, it talks about stepping aside from those internal dialogues and seeing them for what they are and not participating in them almost. It's difficult.
My famous line I always tell my clients is being an external observer of yourself
Oh, I love that.
for inner growth. For inner growth. Being an external observer of yourself. Because if you're in here, you have all the stuff that's going on, but you need to pull yourself away to really understand what are you doing well and what areas you need to improve, if any.
Mm-hmm.
And figuring out objectively, wait a minute, I'm doing this well, but I'm just beating myself up because I'm not 100. Well, maybe you don't need to be 100 on this.
Now, is 100 perfection?
However you decide what that is. Because, yeah, some people think I'm just thinking about people who are trying to pass
Sure.
exams. If they think, I need to get a 95 on this particular area, like, does it really matter? If passing for an exam is 75 and you know it well enough, you don't need to know every single thing in that specific area, just enough for you to be able to get through the material. Or some people get stuck in their job. A lot of accountants, if it doesn't reconcile to the penny, they'll stay for hours. And so we're focused on things that may not necessarily be material in life or in the process of your job, but we get razor focused on things that are immaterial. So that's what I mean by just pulling yourself out of your head and focusing on the major things.
And I think it takes that.
life.
It takes a lot of that because that happened to me. I used to just think everything mattered. Every little detail mattered. And I would focus on all of the details. And I didn't even know what materiality was because I couldn't see past whatever was right in front of me at the time. I couldn't see past myself sometimes. And taking a step back really helps to determine what's material in your personal affairs, what you're worried about, and in the business, everywhere. This is dope. So
Yeah, you do the 20/80 rule.
20/80 rule.
Right?
So I just released an episode, Pareto, right? The Pareto or Pareto principle.
Yep.
80/20. Yeah, we talk about it a lot. And it's hard to, especially when you're in the middle of something, to know what is that 20% that you should be focused on and what's the other stuff that you can just let go. And, being intentional and planning and looking at things from that overhead view strategically to then determine what it is you need to pay attention to, in the moment and in their business. So I don't know. I think everybody needs those cycles of those seasons to go back and do some long-term planning. Yeah. So I love this. So how do you find your clients, or how do they how do you, for people to find you to help for the CPA exam? I mean, you said you didn't even have a website when you first started doing it, right?
Oh.
You got a website now.
Yes, I have a website now. It's called TAPA Institute.com.
What does TAPA stand for?
I forgot. It's Transformational Audit Practitioner Apprenticeship.
Okay. Did
It's
you
like
make this
fancy
up?
stuff.
And then you
Yes,
forgot?
I made it up.
It wasn't that important.
No,
Now
I
it's-
had to think about it. I had to really process this because I always call it TAPA.
Yeah.
The reason I really put them, because it's transformational. We're transforming. And I'm an auditor professional. And it's an apprenticeship, because I'm not only trying to get you past the exam. People actually use my technique to get promoted.
Ooh.
Yeah. And to really, and so this is an apprenticeship, really figuring out techniques to help you figure out what you need to do. Now, we talked about that 80-20 rule. Well, you're not going to get it right all the time. It's okay to make mistakes. This is what we're talking about, being 100. Like, do you have to be perfect? I mean, you may be just better than yesterday. And that's good enough. And so just really kind of resetting yourself on a daily basis. And yes, making long-term goals are important. But a lot of people tend to focus on that last long-term goal and not necessarily work backwards and figure out the steps to get to that long-term goal. It's just like, oh, it's going to come to me automatically. And that is really work on yourself on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think it's the processes too. Sometimes I always get like, I talk about goals, I talk about those big things, but then I also remember it's about those daily processes and those daily habits that you have, keeping those in place. Because then the other stuff kind of just happens. If you continue to get 1% better every day, whatever that means, in whatever area you want to pay attention to.
And that's hard for accountants. That's not our personality.
No. So what do you find, what do accountants struggle with the most when they come to you? Or what are they struggling with the most?
Not being perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Not being perfect, not being smart enough. Like, they think it's about smartness. I believe everyone is smart. Everyone is smart. It's how much time you put into something. Because there could be, I've seen it where people who are deemed to be smart can't achieve well. They don't achieve a lot of it in their lives because they rely on certain skill sets that are not always the most useful, like being a procrastinator.
And
because if you're,
it's a handicap sometimes too, to be labeled as smart when you're younger and saying that this person knows this, then you don't work at it anymore. Almost you hit a ceiling.
Right. And it's quick, or you just rely like, oh, I'll just open a book last minute. So you don't learn techniques. And I think that's where we're challenged nowadays, that we don't learn techniques on how to learn and process. We learn how to memorize, look things up, but not necessarily process and think things through.
Because we don't allow the time to do that too. Like everybody wants to do something so quick. Everything is so instant these days. Anything you want, click of a button, order it, get it.
And and this is why we're all stressed out.
Yeah.
Because we don't disconnect.
Yeah.
Hence, my meditation is a good disconnect. That's my take on it. Or going to the gym. Do kickboxing. Do something just to kind of disconnect a little bit.
It took me about a year journey to disconnect from everything. I read Cal Newport's book, what's it called now? Digital Minimalism. And it was hard to disconnect from the phone and from the computer. All the habits that I had centered around email and notifications, and that was my context shift. That was what I determined what to pay attention to, was what notified me on my phone. Once I turned all those off, it started to get easier to disconnect. Once I turned off the notifications, once I stopped using the phone for certain things, once I stopped using email. I went a little too extreme. And that's a struggle too. But disconnecting lets you tap into yourself and know what you really want too, I think, rather than what everybody else is telling you to do.
And just going back to the parent story, when your parents are telling you to do X and you just don't really want to do it. I've had clients who are, and they're adults, they're 27 plus. It's not like they're children, but their parents are pushing them to become CPAs. So then they struggle. Mm-hmm. Because if it doesn't resonate with you, you're going to struggle. It's like when you were a kid and your parents are telling you to eat broccoli, and you're like, I don't like broccoli. So then you sit there for hours trying to figure out how you could give it to the dog or something. Or it's go eat, put some in your mouth and then go to the bathroom. It's like,
You figure out ways and ingenuity. Like also, you become a little bit more creative in ways to get around the things that you don't want to do.
right. And then, so just, so those are the type of things that we got to think about.
For sure,
really.
yeah. So what do most of the accountants, they struggle with perfection, and I think a lot of that does have to do with there's always a right answer for the stuff that we do. There's always, traditionally, there's one right answer for a lot of the, math and different things. Balance sheet's got to balance, right? Everything's got to be right. I think that our life doesn't necessarily have to balance. There isn't a right answer for a lot of the things that we do, especially running a business, running an accounting firm, or being, a leader. There are no right answers sometimes.
Right. And not only the CPAs, but I also help auditors. The audit exam has a lower pass rate than the CPA.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the CPA exam is around 48%. CIA is around 42%. So what we struggle with as accountants is the conceptual piece. The auditing part is hard, and that's where I started, because people know numbers. They go into numbers that gives them comfort. It's yes or no. But then when you start thinking about auditing, when there's a context involved, that's when we tend to struggle a little bit. And there is a gray area, and that's what we don't like. We like absolute.
Yeah. That's why I didn't do well in audit. I never knew materiality. I had so much trouble with that conceptual stuff. I'm either a 100 or a 0, or a 1 or a 0. I never really find that middle area. It's either like 100% yes or no. There's no there's no middle area. I've always struggled with that. I'm still working on it, but yeah, conceptual struggles. So tell me a little bit about cracking the code. What code are we cracking?
Techniques on passing certification exams.
I think that a lot of stuff you do is cracking the code of life too. It's not just exams,
Indeed.
but like you said, like the exam stuff could translate to becoming a better person, better business owner. Give me some of these concepts of cracking the code.
So, you know what? The concept in the cracking the code, I talk about your learning style. The first chapter in the book is really figuring out who are you? Like, how do you learn? Then applying that to the techniques that are out there. Some techniques, they just kind of tell you, underline, circle, do this, do that. But you need to really figure out what resonates with you, then apply what works, and then that's how you propel forward. I usually, when I used to be a professor and I taught auditing, I used to say, if you want to find a mate, you should use the internal audit process, the auditing process, to actually find a mate. So, for example, planning, fieldwork, and reporting. Those are the 3 concepts. Maybe that should be my 4th book. Right? So, planning phase. So when you are dating, you're getting to know the person. So you're going to actually ask questions. That's understanding the client, the control environment. You're getting to know the person. So you'll ask questions. So if they answer a question and it sounds weird, you'll go deeper. So then you'll go deeper and deeper. That's detailed testing. And then the superficial questions are the test of controls. So it depends on how they respond and what information they're providing to you. So, for example, if they say, oh, I'm a millionaire, and then they come to you on the subway from New York City, like, wait a minute, I thought you were a millionaire. You said you had a Bentley. So what happened? And they're like, oh, it's in the shop. Then you'll ask more questions. You see? And then I just kind of use that storyline to help people relate to the material.
I love that. That's so cool.
And that's how I wrote the comic book, just to help people relate to the material so that it's just not a foreign thing that you're like, what is this materiality? What is this concept? So I'm bringing it to what we're accustomed to. So then now you're like, oh, it's like the planning phase. Oh, the audit committee is like my parents. giving me permission to get married. The engagement letter. Ha ha ha. You get it? I don't know, whatever. Some of your audience will get it.
No, my audience will get it because I do this shit all the time. This is why this is a high school. This is why the theme of the high school always fits in perfectly with certain things. So you use your theme as the way to lay the foundation and understand a concept. Then almost everything seems like it was written for that anyway, and you could always find ways to make it work because that's life. I mean, our language ties to a lot of the things that we do, and if you find similarities in two of the different things, our language is going to connect them anyway. A lot of the words. Mm-hmm. This is why I love doing the rap stuff, because I can take different stories that are being told through the raps. I just did one recently for somebody, and I don't need to go into too much detail, but it was a Wu-Tang track, and it was so easy to kind of use that storytelling of the verse to tell the story of the app that what they're trying to sell. So it was just to kind of bridge those two together.
You need to do a rap for me.
It's already on my list.
The CPA Doctor. The CPA Doctor.
I'm taking M&M's The Way I Am. I'm going to turn it into the CPA exam. I'm going to take your copy, stuff from that you've done for the book, from the comic book, and merge that into that track.
Oh, I would love that. Dope. I would love that. And then I'll put it on my Instagram and all my social media. Why not?
I got to work on it first, though. I got to get the copy. We'll talk about getting the copy after. We'll because I use that, and that's basically I'm just putting a puzzle together on all these. I've done about 9 of them so far this year, and I just take the copy, and this isn't about my process there, but in case anybody wants to know, and then I take the track, usually stuff from the 90s, stuff that most of us grew up with or know typically, pretty well.
Yeah, I don't know the newer stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing though. It's not just about I'm just taking popular stuff, but usually it's like stuff that should be recognizable. At least I would think. And it's not for everybody, but it's fun. I have fun doing it. So taking these, and this is just really interesting to me because, again, like I said, this is the stuff that I naturally do to try to understand concepts myself and I think a lot of people might do this, and this might be my learning style, is I try to take it something relatable and then think about it like that. And then usually it all kind of clicks and falls into place.
Right. So what you do, that's a technique where you take something relatable and you connect something that is unrelatable, and then you create chains of knowledge. That's what it is.
Chains of knowledge.
That's what. Yep. So you start connecting these kind of. So, for example, you're rapping, so you know a song. And you're now having new material, the CPA Doctor or whatever it is that you.
See, if you're CPA Doctor, we could do Dr. Dre. That would actually that might work too. Yeah.
But so you're doing it right now. So you're putting something that's completely foreign to you, and then you're connecting it to something that you're comfortable with, and then now you're pulling words and concepts to pull in to understand what I do.
I love that.
That's how we teach, and that's how we learn.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to dive into there, but I do want to talk about the hypnotherapy. So how did you get into that?
I was not able to pass exams, and I was like, what is going on with me?
That's interesting. You were not able to pass exams.
That's why I started my business. I had my dream job. And they said I had to pass an exam, and I'm not going to tell you what dream job or where, but it was a dream job, and I had to pass an A exam. And I was like, yeah, what's the big deal? And they gave me a year to do it. Now, because of the stress of losing my job, I kept on failing the exam. I studied for something else, I passed it. But this one particular exam, I just did not.
You're stuck.
I was not able. I was stuck. And I just started thinking. I went through so many type of training programs. That's how I learned how people learn differently. So I started studying and understanding what's wrong with me. Why am I able to pass other exams that are harder, but I can't pass this exam? And so I started soul searching, went to so many training programs across the United States. I even went to a hypnotist to understand how it works. And because she used to help she's like, people come to her for law exams. I mean, she's like one of the bigger hypnotists in New York City who helps people with this. And I spoke to her a couple of times, and I said, hey, maybe I should become a hypnotist, because I had clients who were stuck, and I used to send them to her. Because I said, I became unstuck. Why don't I just send these people? Because I was like, my core is really training and teaching people how to learn. And because I was so fascinated by how our mind works, the subconscious and conscious mind, that I decided to become a certified hypnotist so I could better understand. And when I refer out, because again, I can't do everything in my business, so I still continue to refer out to people who do this 7 days a week. But now I understand who I refer out to, a hypnotist or a mental health professional, because I also have mental health professionals on my Rolodex, because people have different things that are stopping them from getting where they want to get to.
Yeah. And sometimes they don't know what's stopping them, though, too. That's part of the problem.
Yeah. I usually get my clients going. I had this one woman who looked like she was going to hurt herself because she failed the exam. Like, she really scared me. And that's when I said, you know what? I need to start getting psychiatrists and psychologists on my radar as referrals. So that's, again, as I mature in my business model, I realized the connections between our mental health, our desire to move professionally, and how that impacts us financially. And it's a cyclical kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of patterns in that, too. And once you start to recognize them, you can start breaking them. That's pretty cool. So how does this hypnotherapy work? How long does it take?
Well, it depends on the person. They say about 85% of the people are hypnotizable. And so there's certain things that we do to see who is more susceptible to suggestions. And then once we determine that, we figure out, what do you want to accomplish? So for example, most of the people who come to me are looking to pass exams. So I sometimes do visualization where they have a fear. When they open the book, they start crying. Or they have a tremendous fear when they go to the testing center. So I'll walk them through the time they leave their house to the testing center. And then I give them positive affirmations, which basically I'm talking to their subconscious mind. Because we have two levels. We have the conscious mind, which where we are, and we do things subconsciously, like, why am I eating chocolate every time I'm stressed out? Why am I doing this, like biting my fingernails right before a test, or pulling my hair? These habits have been formed based on some type of trauma. That's not what I analyze. That's beyond me. What I do is that we recognize it, and I try to build and strengthen new neural pathways or ways of thinking about things. So if you want to grab a chocolate, then perhaps by my affirmation will say, grab a cup of tea instead. So that way you start building different habits. So for people who are afraid to pass the exam, either it may be a traumatic situation. I may say, you are going to pass the exam. You know the information. So once they're at the state where the suggestibility is available for me, or their subconscious mind is awake, that's when I provide that positive affirmation. And we usually work that out with the client before I even start.
This is so cool.
And you can use it for weight loss, and stopping and smoking. That has been the most popular two things. Like, a lot of people use hypnosis to stop smoking and to lose weight as well.
It reminds me a lot of Atomic Habits and books like that focus on habits and, the stimulus, response, reward, a lot of those. And then just, being able to substitute things and being able to make things invisible, make things obvious. I think that works on a lot of levels. So if you're trying to pass an exam, and every time you open your book, you go on your phone and you start doing Instagram.
nothing wrong with it. It's whatever, social media, whatever the platform could be.
Well, there's a lot of things wrong with it. There's also nothing wrong with it, depending on how you look at it. But yeah.
Right. And that's a habit that you've built. Every time you open your book, you start saying, oh, maybe I should check my emails. So we work on a self-hypnosis script to help you refocus and get back to your studies.
Do you find that people have to really be self-motivated? I mean, that's why they're coming to you in the first place, right? Or is it their parents signing them up?
It depends. A lot of people are just don't understand why they can't pass. Right? They just can't figure it out. And it could be they're not sleeping. So my first session is usually a skills assessment, so I figure out where you are. Some people are not passing because they're not sleeping. I had a client who used to study while he was sleep deprived. And that's like studying like if you're drunk. And you know that's not going to work out very well. So we had to work on his sleeping habits before we can start even studying.
That foundational stuff.
So we had to move his sleeping habits right before, a couple of weeks before, so that he's able to be at his best self during the test time that he allotted for himself.
That's hard to do. It took me a better part of a year to fix my sleep.
Yeah. Yep. It's easy to kind of get out of that habit, just like going to the gym, but it's so hard to kind of move towards that. So we used to just move it by 20 minutes. That's what we actually did. Yeah. But we worked on it way before his exam, like at least like 8 weeks before. So that's what the skills assessment is there for me to really figure out where you are, what's going on, what are the habits that are helpful, and what habits that we need to kind of figure out something different.
So how do you break it down for the people that are overwhelmed with all the different things? How do you break it down? What are like the core things that you look for what's getting somebody stuck, what they're stuck in? Because it might not be, like for our listeners at least, it might not be an exam, but it might be some other things that they're stuck on. Like, what are the things that they could look at or that they could do?
Well, this is why I'm doing this Leader in You workshop.
Barbados.
In Barbados. and we get stuck. On you and I can have I get stuck on things.
Always, yeah.
We get stuck
I'm stuck on a lot of things right now.
Yeah, me too. I'm a work in progress. So you get stuck on things, and you're gonna have to figure out how to get unstuck. And some things work for others, and some things don't. So, for example, when I had a client who used to just have a lot of negative talk, just self-sabotage. I'm so stupid. I can't do this. And it's just not only for the test. I mean, she used to just say that about herself. I'm dumb. And so I had her use this, you see this band? I had her put one on. And every time she started saying something negative, I go, reset. So every time she started talking about some negative thing, I go, reset. And that helped her break out of her habit. It took a while, but it helped her reprogram herself. So since she started picking up what she was saying, things that weren't helpful for her self-being. And so she's like, oh, reset. And I was like,
That's when they get it.
That's when
what
they
about
get
other
it.
people? Like maybe she has people in her life that have been telling her that, maybe there's close friends or parents that have been giving her those signs. Like how do you control that, or how do you recognize that?
This is where you go to therapy. This is why I say that's why I actually learned and figured out that I need to have these two groups of people on my team to help my clients, because that piece, that's beyond my capabilities. But the hypnosis piece are for habits that we're just trying to get you through the exam. But then when we recognize there's an underlying issue, then again, I usually refer them out to therapists.
Cool. Yeah. So what are some of your ambitions? Do you still have things that you want to do? Any books that you're working on? I
was thinking about that, like, because this is the end of the year, And I was like, okay, what do I want to do next? Because I got my doctorate. I'm so proud of that. That was something on my bucket list. At this point, I really would like to help as many people as possible, really build the programs that I've created just to go across the globe and travel more and spend more time with my family. Those are and just be healthy. I lost 17 pounds.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's dope. Yeah. Hypnosis?
Yeah. Well, actually going to the gym and stop eating bonbons.
Yeah. It's always the foods. It's that's really what unlocks a lot of it. It's drinking sugars, not drinking any sugars anymore is what really helped me. And then foods, like eliminating certain things from the diet.
Yeah. So I became vegan. I'm more aware. Again, that's that awareness piece, right? Where you could translate some of the things like teaching tutoring to life. Being aware what you're doing to sabotage your ability to stay thin and healthy. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? That's something a little beyond the why, but recognizing it and saying, you know what, I would like to change. And once you do that, then you have the momentum to change because there's a desire that's driven from within.
Well, the why is connected to that too. You know, your why in business, Simon Sinek, what he talks about. That golden circle. Did you ever, you know what I'm referring to, the finding your why?
No, I don't know. So go ahead. Tell me.
I want to boil it down, or I don't want to skim over it, but you know, it's like figuring out why, what's your purpose for, and it's not just to make a profit, right? In your business, the business exists to serve a purpose beyond just making money. And once you really figure out what that is as the owner, then a lot of the decisions become easier and they become more long-term and more, you know, more fulfilling for you rather than just, you know, these quarter after quarter goals.
My why is really to help society increase the knowledge pool in society so everyone can have a better life. Yeah. That's my why for my business.
It sounds like that's what you're doing for sure.
Yeah. So, and I believe in audit because that's where I grew up. And so I love helping companies reevaluate their audit function to reevaluate their audit function. Because that's the core. That's your sounding board. Technically, the internal auditors are your internal consultants. They're your sounding boards. And if you could build that and really empower them to add that value to the organization, that's the external observer of yourself. Because a corporation is a person, right? Well, that's the core. And that should be your sounding board to help you navigate through corporate America or the strategies that you have set forth. Again, I'm using the same concept that I use on my clients, and now I'm using it on a higher level with corporations.
Corporations could be more than a person because they'll last longer. Their longevity could be longer than a person, and a lot of those, you know, I remember the chains and what's that called again? You could chain that knowledge of like a person and bridge it to the anatomy of a corporation and the anatomy of a person. Probably can go pretty deep there.
Right, because they say a corporation is a person. So then, again, when I was working on my dissertation, we talked about, so do corporations are required to stand for social issues, or are they there just to make a profit? What's their real mission? Are they there to help society and really drive change, economic and social changes, or are they there to really just make a profit?
It's a very good question. I mean, it starts with the leadership.
But then the leadership, well, then you have to really figure out, is the leadership the individuals in the organization?
Or the answering to the public, shareholders.
Right. It's a very complicated question and answer because now you have different cultures in leadership. And so what I think is appropriate may not necessarily be appropriate for someone across the world. And we have different values and societal norms. And now we're the leaders in an organization. And now we have to make decisions to stay profitable. That's why we're in business, right? But then also, do we have a larger mission?
So that's where things like B Corp come in. So B Corps, have you heard of B Corp corporation?
No,
So
go
it's a designation, and there's a process that a business has to go to become a qualified B Corp or certified B Corporation. And that's fulfilling a lot of everything that you said, basically. Like, you know, they have to have a smaller carbon footprint. They have to have a purpose. They have to be serving that. So it's not like a nonprofit, because they are all for-profit companies, but it's a governing board and standards that they have to meet and continue to meet. And it's hard to become certified. It takes a couple of years, you know, or more for business to really transform themselves into having that, you know, guiding compass or guiding focus on what it is they want to achieve as a business. I think you'd really resonate with that. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it, and it says that there are about 4,000 certified B Corps in 77 countries across 153 different industries. So again, this goes back to social, like ESG is hot right now. So environmental awareness and in the governance and social piece of it. We're on this earth, regardless if you believe global warming is real, but we're all on this earth, and we're trying to figure out to preserve it as best we can. And now with corporations backing it up, you know, like looking at the mission and profit and how that affects sustainability is where I think the B Corp is the sweet spot for B Corp.
Yeah. It ties into that too. So how do you spend more time with your family, and how do you travel more?
Now, what I do, before COVID, I used to travel 4 times a year. I travel 4 times a year. So I travel alone. I do 1 trip with my husband. I do 1 trip with the family. And then I do 1 trip with the girl, with my friends. Yeah, with the friends. So I usually do 4 trips a year, because you need to go out by yourself. I'm not, you know, and then just kind of be alone and do stuff just to kind of reconnect. And then you're with your friends, because you're so busy with family and life and work, that you need to reconnect and find, because your husband or wife may not be the all for you in terms of tapping into all of your aspects of your personality. So you have to really connect with those 4 parts. And my children, you know, they're growing up, helping them really navigate through life and understand the pluses and minuses of things they do is important to me. So going out with them and doing something fun I enjoy it greatly. So though now that COVID is kind of changing the way we do things, I mean, before we couldn't really travel for the last 2.5 years, I'm reinstating that, and we're traveling 4 times a year.
That's cool. So do you do it like every quarter? How do you intentionally plan these?
Every quarter. Yeah. And in a couple of years, we actually are going to take off and travel around the world for 1.5 years, and we're actually saving for it.
You and the family?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're going to go nomad
Yeah.
for 1.5 years. Are you going to sell your house?
No, I'm going to rent it, Airbnb it.
Oh, wow.
Right. And we are going off around the world, and we're going to Antarctica if it's still around. But
yeah, true. Good point.
So we're going to go to different countries around the world for 1.5 years, just to explore and understand.
That's a reset
culture.
right there.
Yeah.
That'll reset your whole human experience after doing that, right?
Yeah.
You'll come back an entirely new person.
Yeah, I'm doing it after the kids graduate from college.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I'd love to hear more about that too. So I guess next time you come on, you're going to hypnotize me?
Yes, but you have to tell me what you want to be hypnotized. Like, what's your goal? So we need to do you got it. I just don't hypnotize. Okay. I have to figure out what you want to get out of it so that we can work on it on your subconscious level.
It'll be a teaser for the audience. I got to figure that out, because honestly, like I don't know. I feel like right now everything is good. Like I'm living a different life than I was 2 years ago. Everything.
So maybe that's what we work on, to continue that.
Yeah, keep that going.
Yeah.
I got to figure out where I'm stuck too, where I'm trapped or where I'm stuck, and get unstuck.
Well, Well, you told me you had some things. Maybe you want to talk about it now, but you did mention earlier that you have some things. We're all stuck on
Oh,
something.
for sure.
Yeah. So then just pick one and then just work on it. Or, you do a hypnosis session on that one thing and see what happens.
Well, that's trying to build this other business. I got my accounting firm, but now I'm also turning this whole Accounting High thing into its own platform. So a community, mentoring, coaching, education, and I'm stuck on just getting it started because I have this whole vision for it, but it's hard to just start it at the ground level. So
come to Leader and You in Barbados.
when is it? In May?
It's in May 17th and 18th.
Because I'll be in.
So come.
I might be in Italy
And then you can,
in May as well. Yes.
Really? Wow.
So-
I'm actually going to Paris in
Ooh,
July.
that's dope. Yeah.
Yeah. So what, you going to Italy? Where?
I might be going with Expensify. So by the time this is released, I'll know if I'm going or not. But I might be performing my rap that I did for them, and they're taking 100 accountants to Italy. Yeah,
Really?
it's their
They need to
Expensicon.
take 101. They should
Well,
take
you could be one of those
101.
100. You just got to go and apply. Yeah,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you got to send me that information.
Expensify. You'll find it. Expensify, Expensicon. So cool. So for our listeners, what's one piece of advice you can give them? They're mostly accounting firm owners, accountants, CPAs, EAs, bookkeepers. What's one piece of advice? You've given a lot. There's a lot of golden nuggets in here. I'm loving it.
Outsourcing.
Ooh.
Because I'm a small business, woman owned, and we can't do everything. So outsourcing, it may cost a little bit of money, but it gives us the ability to become that strategist that we need to be for our company to continue to grow.
Outsourcing what?
Outsourcing activities. So for example, give me so I'm going to do a little assessment with you. So you want to start this, you want to kind of start this and be this is a second business that you're starting. Tell me something that's just cringy that you just hate doing for this.
Checking my email, doing anything administratively.
So guess what? You may need to get an admin assistant. I'm just throwing it out there without really doing a full assessment. So you may need to get a virtual assistant
have
just
one.
to kind of get. Yeah, so get them to do this.
I'm on that road. I'm starting to
Yep.
spend more money on different things that I can't do or I know I can't do. So I am starting to outsource stuff, and I was trying to do it all myself, but I know that's not going to be possible.
But that's the message to a small business owner, the accountants out there, because especially we like to watch the bottom line. We're like, well, no, we don't want to, that expense is going to eat away from my revenue. So I could actually do this myself. Outsource.
We see that problem with a lot of small business owners too. So a lot of accountants for sure, because they're making good money. A lot of the solo practitioners, if they just have one man show, they could be doing over 200,000 a year, and really high margins. Once you hire that first person, all of a sudden you're going to see a big dip in your income, but then also a big spike in your energy and your time and your, freedom. And that's usually the first step, is getting that first admin. I think that's great advice.
And the second thing is to take a break.
Take a vacation. Or
Yeah,
take 4 of them.
It doesn't have. You don't have to be that extreme
I
like
love that.
myself, but I think just even half a day. Start with half a day. Just do nothing, right? Like we were talking about, just disconnect, because I'll give you that moment for you to reset.
Love that. Well, Sabine, thanks for coming on. This was great. This might be one of my favorite episodes.
Oh, thank you.
If you hypnotized me, you would have already convinced me that it was my favorite, right? You would have had me coming out of it saying
I'm working on
this was
it.
my best. Yeah.
See, you don't even know that you were getting hypnotized.
Oh, so maybe you already did.
Right?
Yeah. All right. Well, how can our listeners find you?
Oh, yes. So come find me on TAPAInstitute.com. Oh, I got frozen.
TAPAInstitute.com.
TAPAInstitute.com or charlesfs.com.
Okay. Dope. All right. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Take care of yourself.
Yes, I'll try.
Peace out.